Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show podcast, coming from right here in my little office here. Jonathan Voico has been out all week taking care of some sick kiddos, so I'm kind of running the show from my office in here. But it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around so we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news, TV and streaming, and all sorts of good things, not just giving you our opinions, but giving you some information and context so you guys can form your own well-informed opinions, whether they're the same or a little bit different than ours. Joining us today well, not in studio, but joining me today from her studio at home, Chris Carr is here, ladies and gentlemen. Woo!
Woo! Let's go! Strike is over! Woo, 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 woo!
Oh, and Chrissy Denicio is going to come out. It's great.
Woo!
It's 6 p.m. somewhere. Let's
go.
As Chris is alluding to, the strike is over. Hallelujah. I got some thoughts on this. Obviously, Chris will too. Some good ones, some not so good ones. But thank God, I think everybody will agree. We're all very happy that the strike, it is over. And Vixter is saying that, hey, Chris, it's 7:30 in the UK. Go for it. So there you go.
Thanks, Vixter.
It's time to get on to it. Anyway, guys, great having you here today. And here's how today's show is going to go. We're going to break it into two parts. The first part of the show, we're going to talk about a bunch of predetermined topics, including that end of the strike. Then in the last part of the show, we're going to take your live questions. If you guys are watching live right now and you've got a thought, comment, question, opinion, whatever, you'd like to send it in for us to address, go ahead and use the super chat feature in the live chat, and we'll get to those as long as it's appropriate to be used on the show at or near the end of the show. A side note, normally we also take questions just from our YouTube channel members, but since Jonathan is the one who coordinates that and is able to bring those up, I'm not able to do that right now. So for this week, we're just taking super chats. So if you guys have something to say, you have a chance to go ahead and say it. All right, guys, with all that down, let's get started here, shall we? We're going to start off with this. You know, one of the best things about that most recent Puss in Boots movie. By the way, what was it called? It was Puss in Boots Last Wish or something like that. Anyway, one of the best things about that movie, and it was a wonderful little film, was that at the end, it gave us this massive kind of little tease. Well, I wouldn't even say it's a tease. This little kind of foreshadowing about Shrek maybe returning. And having watched Puss in Boots and how great it was, a lot of us started talking about, you know, we would love to see another Shrek. It's time. It's been a while. Yeah, a couple of the Shrek movies didn't live up to par, but a lot of them were really good, and it's time. And then we started hearing like some of the uppity ups over at Universal saying, hey, yeah, we're looking at another Shrek movie and all that kind of stuff. Well, yesterday, the internet, it lit on fire, ladies and gentlemen. It lit on fire as news started going everywhere that Shrek 5 has a release date. Now, this all comes from the fact, first of all, let me read. This is from TMZ is writing this. The internet is in a frenzy right now over what looks like big Shrek news. The apparent leaking of the release date for the fifth movie, courtesy of an intern. Here's the deal. Shrek 5 is trending, and it all has to do with a screen grab of an alleged LinkedIn resume from a young woman who claims she has recently worked at NBC Universal, the parent company of the big green guys studio DreamWorks. And you take a look here on their resume, one of the things it says they worked on was generated consumer product ideas for Shrek 5 DreamWorks animation coming in 2025. And that got the whole world burning on fire. And everybody wanted to talk about Shrek 5. All right. First, let me just address the validity of this. This is clearly questionable. All right. This is some rando who you have never met and I have never met may or may not have put something as a resume line that may or may not be authentic, that happened to be on LinkedIn, and somebody took a screenshot of it and started sharing it around. Okay, that's dubious at best. It's dubious at best. However, the fact that, as we've mentioned, a bunch of, executives over at Universal have talked about the fact that, yeah, I mean, with the success of Puss in Boots, which was crazy successful, with that success, they wanted to look at doing another Shrek film. So quite frankly, if somebody just came to me this morning and said, hey, would you believe me if I told you that they're looking at doing a Shrek film in 2025? I would say, yeah, I can buy that because of everything they've been talking about before. And I wouldn't doubt if they're already rolling on it with something like that. So right out there somewhere, Taylor Gonzalez is really, really happy.
He's high-fiving 1,000 angels.
He really is right now. Chris, I mean, I think you and I both, after Puss in Boots and the way that it ended, and a few months ago, the comments we heard from Universal, I think you and I both believed in principle that a Shrek 5 was going to come. But now we got something like this. What do you make of this whole situation? Is it believable? Do you think this Shrek 5 thing is coming? How do you see it?
I definitely think we're getting Shrek 5. I definitely do. I mean, those 4 movies, they make up the top 4, I believe, of the 10 top grossing DreamWorks films of all time.
Wow.
So it'd be just money left behind to not continue mining this IP. And especially with the resurgence of how much people love Shrek and how Shrek has been memeified and how Gen Z is just really kind of latched on to Shrek iconography, I think it makes so much sense. This intern leak, ooh. See, and this is the trouble with internships, isn't it? I mean, you're not paid. You got to use what you've done there to get another job. It's tricky trying to tell people what you can do when you sign NDAs. I think there's a lot of potential validity to this being a leak of somebody who's, hey, this is what I did at this place. Let me get this job. I'm wondering, though, if it was, because of my LinkedIn account or something of that nature. I think the intern themselves maybe posted something a bit more public than just let me shoot this over to some future employers. I think this might have been more of a, hey, here's what I've been up to kind of situation. Because when you work for these companies, you get so excited about stuff. When I was a Disney intern, I wanted to tell everybody about everything because it was so cool. And then I realized that I'd get, shuffled off to the Disney Gestapo on property. So I kept my mouth shut.
Now, I mean, there's also, I'm sure this person, because I think the intern no longer was at Universal. I think they had wrapped up their internship. Absolutely, an intern's going to put that on their resume, 100%.
For sure.
And maybe they just kind of thought, LinkedIn isn't Facebook. It isn't, Instagram. Maybe it's a little bit more private. I mean, I don't think that. Now, it should be noted that this person's account has scrubbed that off their resume. At least publicly, so that's not there anymore, but the damage has kind of been done. So I'll tell you what, I do believe that a Shrek 5 is coming with or without this leak on LinkedIn. I believe a Shrek 5 movie is coming. I totally can believe that would be coming in 25. And I'll tell you what, I'm totally down for it. I would love to see another Shrek film. And hopefully it'll turn out to be as good as the second one. I still personally think the second Shrek film is the, godfather of the Shrek universe.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's
1,000%. That movie, that soundtrack. Oh,
so good. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Hey, you know what's a really stupid fad that shouldn't have a place in anybody's homes? 3D. 3D is stupid. 3D is a useless
hot
gimmick.
On this one.
It's a useless gimmick that is not enjoyable whatsoever. But whatever, some people like Ray sitting outside that door for some reason still really like 3D. And more power to you if you like 3D. Well, apparently, Apple TV Plus is about to start offering movies on their streaming service in 3D. Why would they do that? Well, let's get into that. This comes to us from the folks over at Flat Panels HD who write this. In apparent preparation for the launch of the Apple Vision Pro, the iTunes movie store now offers, not coming, it's now offers a handful of 3D movies, including Jurassic World Dominion and Pacific Rim Uprising. When the Vision Pro headset was announced in June, Apple confirmed that it would support both 2D, 3D, and quote-unquote immersive movies through a dedicated home cinema mode in the device. One of the movies showcased in 3D at the event was Avatar: The Way of Water. The movie is available through the Apple TV app on iTunes and Disney+. So, to enable 3D movies on Apple Vision Pro, either one or both apps would need to be updated to add 3D support. Okay, so I remember when they announced the Apple Vision Pro, there were two big things. Number one, it's actually kind of a really neat device. Like it's very gimmicky in some ways, but sometimes gimmicky isn't necessarily bad. Like sometimes gimmicky can actually provide something that people would actually like. The other thing that really jumped out at me was holy F balls. What's the price on it? What's the price? It was like over $3,000. Now there have been some talk that maybe it'll come down to like mid 2000s. It's a very, very, very expensive VR headset sort of thing. But it kind of goes to show again what Apple basically is as a company, right? And before you think I hate Apple or anything like that, listen, right now I got an iPhone. I'm producing this show on a Mac Studio. I have an iPad sitting over there, and my wife worked at Apple for a couple of years. It's not that I'm trying to hate on Apple. It's just that Apple likes to make things that will make you use other Apple things and only other Apple things, right? It's the reason why messages on iPhone will not work with Android. It's you know, all that kind. They want you in their ecosystem, is what they call it. The Apple ecosystem. You get in it, you stay in it. And one of the things that they're going to try to use to kind of pump and promote this wildly overpriced headset that I'm pretty sure is still not available to anybody yet, is the idea of being able to get some 3D movies. Which, you know what, Chris, if you're trying to make your product stand out, like you're trying to make like this wildly overpriced device they have coming out, say, hey, listen, in the Apple iTunes store, you can actually get movies in 3D, and in your little stupid looking Google headset thing, you can watch something in useless 3D. Yay! So I mean, I can understand the connection. I really can, despite the fact that it sounds like I'm mocking it. I do understand the connection there. Let me ask you, because there's a couple of issues at play here. One is just the nature of 3D in and of itself. But yeah, would the ability to watch some movies in 3D be enough to motivate you? And I'm assuming at this price tag, you and Logan would have to probably make this decision together. Because, you know, it's either buy a second used car or get this headset. Would something like being able to offer and pick up some movies in 3D like Jurassic or Avatar: The Way of Water, would that be something that would motivate you to go out and get a device like this? Or nah, thanks, but no thanks? How do you see it?
When I got these topics, I looked at this price because Logan loves 3D. He loves it. Ray and Logan are the same person.
They love all the in many ways.
They have all the same taste. And so was, hey, Apple's doing these 3D glasses essentially that, you know, gives you surround round, really immersive. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. We have to get that with our stuff. It's $3,000. Fuck off. No. I'm trying to check right now. I can get 2 premium first class tickets to London for less than this. So David Tennant's being Macbeth this December. Like, let's do that instead. I think that price point's just bananas. I can see the value for somebody who wants to have a really incredible home theater, who has that kind of expendable income. But man, that price point, even if they drop it, if there's a bananas Black Friday, Cyber Monday deal or something, that is so much money for something with a limited theatrical catalog, because you have to wait till everything else gets loaded in there and is usable. I don't really see the value in this until there's more movies that you can watch.
Now, I can see the value if you are already going to own the Vision Pro, right? Because sure. I think there's some people are probably going to be pretty attracted to it because they did that whole demo where it's like, hey, it's going to look like you have a giant floating screen. What's that Steven Spielberg, Tom Cruise movie again? What's where he's like pulling up all the screens? And Minority Report, thank you. Where, you know, you can basically have your own Minority Report going on where you have all these massive monitors popped up and you're controlling things. And that's going to be part of it. So maybe adding a couple of movies like in 3D that are specifically tailored to this device might be a nice little value add. I don't know how you guys feel about it watching live, but like for me, this is not something that's going to add any extra motivation for me to get the $3,000 Vision Pro, but for some people, maybe it will. I'd be curious to know, some of you guys want to pick this thing up. Let me know down in the comments below. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, one of the things about the streaming wars is that it's all going to become about, and we talked about this many times, exclusive content that you have on your platform. But then some platforms started taking some of their exclusive content, like Max, and licensing it out to other services like Netflix. And now, if you're somebody who wants to watch the DCEU catalog of films, Max isn't the only game in town now. You can now go to Netflix. And there are some people who want them to take that a little bit further. This is what's being said over at CBR. They write the following. Recently, it was reported that most of the films set in the DC Extended Universe would be coming to Netflix next month, from Man of Steel to The Suicide Squad. According to a subsequent report from What's on Netflix, 2 more DCU films are also set to be added in December, with Shazam and Black Adam joining the list. The report also notes last year's unconnected films, The Batman and The League of Super Pets, were also to hit Netflix as well. Others that are coming include Batman vs. Superman, Dawn of Justice, Suicide Squad, Wonder Woman, Justice League, Birds of Prey, and Wonder Woman 1984. So that is all a part of it. Now, this on one hand seems totally counterintuitive to the whole notion about how streaming services are going to be, and the streaming wars are going to be decided predominantly by who has the most and best exclusive content. But for somebody like Max, I think there is some wisdom in licensing out some of these movies to Netflix temporarily, because that's one of the things that it's highlighting and emphasizing in these reports, that these licenses are temporary. This is not in perpetuity, right? At some point, they're going to be exclusive back to just Max again. But for the time being, if you're Warner Brothers Discovery, you've got these DCEU movies sitting on your service, and they're not making you any money. They're just sitting there, and some people will come along and watch them now and again, I suppose. So what do? You offer a temporary license, and I don't know if it's going to be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 6 months. I don't know the term of it off the top of my head, but you offer this temporary license to Netflix. Netflix pays you a big-ass check for the right to stream those movies for a certain set period of time. So now those movies just made you a bunch of money. Also now, you have Netflix that is acting like your personal commercial. Netflix is now playing all this content that at some point is going to be exclusive to Max again. So you're making money off the content, and you are spreading awareness of your service through the content being out there. So there are some upsides for them doing this. Now, here's where it gets a little bit spicy. 2 of the things that have not gone over to Netflix are the Snyder cut of Justice League. It's just the regular theatrical version of Justice League. And I can't remember what it was called, the Ultimate Edition. There was a Batman versus Superman special director's extended cut. I can't remember what the specific name of it was. But those 2 things did not go to Netflix. Those Warner Brothers decided those 2 things are going to remain as exclusively here. And it's almost like they're putting out the theatrical version of Justice League on Netflix saying, hey, you know how you heard about that extended cut? Yeah, well, you got to come over to Max to come see that. So even then, it's on another level. It's pretty smart. But here's what's been happening, Chris. So a bunch of Snyderverse fans have seen Netflix getting it. Number one, they're complaining that Netflix isn't putting on the Snyder version of the Justice League when that wasn't Netflix's decision. That's Warner Brothers' decision to keep that exclusive. So they're getting mad at Netflix for no reason. But it started a big call from people online and the Snyderverse fans rallying again, calling on Netflix to purchase the rights to the DCEU films so that Zack Snyder can continue on his Snyderverse version of the DCEU. And it is crazy how big that conversation has become, because it can't happen. Like, I don't know how to break this to some people, but Netflix has a temporary license to stream some movies that belong to Max. The movies belong to Max, but more importantly, the DC properties belong to Max and to Warner Brothers Discovery. Just because you're streaming certain shows on your network does not mean you can do that. And even if Netflix were to acquire in perpetuity the streaming rights to those, DCEU movies, that still does not give Netflix the right to make movies with DC characters. So there is no such thing as Netflix being able to buy the rights. Even if Netflix bought the rights to these individual movies, which they can't, but even if they could, they still don't own the characters and they wouldn't be allowed to create their own content anyway. So let's just put that to rest, that no, folks, Netflix is not going to. What would have to happen here? Netflix would literally have to buy DC, period, the whole company. They would have to buy the company from Warner Brothers. Number one, Netflix isn't interested in buying that. Number two, Warner Brothers is no interest in selling it. So that's there. Anyway, Chris, it's kind of interesting in these days of the streaming wars to seeing something that is such prominent, exclusive content to one streaming service now being, even if it's temporary, licensed out to another service. We've seen some projects do that. We've seen some exclusive do this, but nothing at the high profile as the DCU. What do you think about this move that they're doing? And could we see more of this moving forward?
I think it's smart. They need money. We're all trying to recoup cost right now. And Warner Brothers in particular has been on a huge hack and slash, right? Let's cut costs where we can. Let's take tax breaks where we can. So licensing out things does make sense to me, especially if they're not your super exclusives, right? Hey, you can watch this version of it, but this special director's cut, this deluxe version, we'll keep that to ourselves. So you get a little taste. But then when you want the good, come over this way, right? Now, I'm going to take a big drink because Snyderverse people. You guys, let him move on. Let him move on. He's moved on. Why can't you? I love if you love the Snyderverse. I love that for you. If you are a huge, Dawn of Justice, Batman v Superman fan, that's great. Wonderful. You can still watch those movies. But he's not even wanting to do this stuff anymore. He's got Rebel Moon coming out, that big epic. He's got Twilight of the Gods coming out. He has a production company with his wife, Deborah. He has other things to do. And for me personally, and again, if you like the Snyderverse stuff, that's great. For me, it was always style over substance.
Yeah.
And while I love some of his other films, his, Dawn of the Dead, his 300, things like that, I even have a little bit of a soft spot for Sucker Punch.
God. It was a great looking movie.
I know.
But you know what?
It was a great looking movie.
I actually kind of liked his Army of the Dead. I know Rob didn't like that. I know there were a bunch of people that I got a kick. I mean, I didn't think it was a great movie, but I got a kick out of that movie. I thought it was pretty fun.
There's fun stuff, and he does cool stylistic things. But I think one of the great things about Zach is that he has tried different kind of genres and put his own spin on it. And gosh, this was a decade ago that we were doing these movies? So many things have happened since then. So much new IP is out. So many things. So I think if you're a true Zack Snyder fan, personally, give him the grace, the permission, the go-ahead to do something else. Because if you love his work, then really show it and let him do new things. Because as a director, that's probably the most exciting thing you can do. Really try new stuff. Go to explore new IP or original IP like Rebel Moon. So that's my 2 cents on it. I think we just need to kind of put the whole Snyderverse to bed.
I am very curious to see Rebel Moon. Like I'm
so curious.
I'm not going to say I'm excited for it because frankly, I don't think the trailer was all that good, but I think the premise sounds really interesting. So I kind of feel the same way about it. Like I feel like the Marvels that we're both going to go see today.
Yeah.
Like I'm not going to pretend I'm excited for it, but I am very interested. And I'm really, really curious to see how this Rebel Moon, because they're talking about doing an animated spinoff of it and all this kind of stuff too. They seem to be really, doubling down and kind of going all in on this Rebel Moon thing. So I'm going to be really curious to see how that goes. All right, guys, with that down, we still got to talk about the fact that Inside Out 2 just put out their first teaser trailer. The Hollywood actors movie strike is now over. Movies are going to be made again, and it looks like Deadpool 3 is actually going to come out this summer, and Captain America 4 may come out earlier than we thought. But before we get to those things, we're going to take a couple of seconds here and thank a couple of sponsors of today's episode of the John Campea Show podcast, our friends at Fume and Rocket Money. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of this video, Fume. Quitting cold turkey is great in theory, but you and I both know it's way more difficult than that. And that's why there's a better way to break your bad habits. We're not talking about some fake online promises. We're talking about our sponsor, Fume. And they look at the problem in a different way. Instead of a drastic, uncomfortable change, why not just remove the bad from your habit? Fume is an innovative, award-winning flavor-air device that does just that. See, instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses delicious flavors. You get it. Instead of bad, Fume is good. It's a habit you're free to enjoy and makes replacing your bad habit easy. I personally didn't know what to expect when I first got my Fume. I mean, I've never liked vapes, but my goodness, the taste. The first time I tried it, I was completely sold on it. It was incredible. Stopping is something we all put off because it's hard, but switching to Fume is easy, enjoyable, and even fun. Fume has served over 150,000 customers and has thousands of success stories, and there's no reason that can't be you. You gotta try the new Solano Fume. It's made with a premium walnut barrel and an onyx-coated mouthpiece that has a slightly softer finish. Start the holidays off right with the good habit by going to tryfume.com/Campea and getting the Journey Pack today. Fume is giving listeners of the show 20% off until December 1st when they use my code Campea to help make starting the good habit that much easier. So start the good habit at tryfume.com/Campea to save an additional 20% off the Journey Pack today until December 1st and 10% off year-round. We want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's episode, Rocket Money. Do you struggle to save money every month? With Rocket Money, you can quickly identify all those sneaky subscriptions that keep charging you month after month and cancel any you no longer use. For example, did you know that over 80% of people have subscriptions that they've completely forgotten about? It's too easy to subscribe to a free trial of something and then completely forget about it once you stop using it. That's why I'm such a big fan of Rocket Money. I've told you guys before that when I started using Rocket Money, I realized that I was still subscribed to a gym in another city I had moved away from 2 years ago. Also, my music service? Yeah, I found out I was still subscribed to 2 others. How much do you think you're paying a month on subscriptions? Most people think they're paying $80 a month, but they're actually paying closer to $200. That's why I use Rocket Money. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that finds and cancels your unwanted subscriptions, monitors your spending, and helps you lower your bills all in one place. With Rocket Money, you can easily cancel the ones you don't want with just the press of a button. With over 5 million users and counting, Rocket Money has helped save its customers on an average of $720 a year and $1 billion in total savings so far. So stop wasting money on things you don't use. Cancel your unwanted subscriptions and manage your money the easy way by going to rocketmoney.com/Campea. That's rocketmoney.com/Campea. rocketmoney.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Fume and Rocket Money for sponsoring today's episode. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, I think probably the most underappreciated and under-recognized top shelf Pixar films. Because when we think of top shelf Pixar films, instantly we'll think of movies like, the Toy Stories, or we're going to think of the Incredibles or stuff like that. But I think one of them that is right up there, right near the top, is Inside Out. Inside Out was a tremendously special movie with great depth, great heart, great charm, beautiful characters. It was just wonderfully done. And one of those movies where there wasn't a dry eye in the house when, say, Riley's got to feel sad. I mean, not a dry eye in the house. Well, we found out a while ago, kind of surprisingly, that a Inside Out 2 was coming, and they have dropped a new trailer for it. This comes to us from the folks over at Variety, who wrote the following. Guess joy is hard at work for Pixar fans because Inside Out 2 has just dropped its first trailer. Inside Out 2 is the sequel to 2015's animated coming-of-age Inside Out. The first film centered on 11-year-old Riley, played by Caitlin Diaz, in the 5 emotions of her brain, led by a star-studded cast of joy, Amy Poehler, sadness, Phyllis Smith, disgust, Mindy Kaling, fear, Bill Hader, and anger, brilliantly by Lewis Black. In the sequel trailer, a new emotion is introduced, the frazzled orange anxiety. And apparently, there are going to be 4 new emotions because Riley is getting a little bit older now. And I tell you what, I laughed my ass off watching this teaser this morning. And we meet the one new emotion. She goes, "Hi, yeah, I'm anxiety." And I'm like, okay, so Riley's entering high school. Here we go. And anxiety is now going to be a big part of her life. And I don't know what they're going to do with the other ones. I know we do have we're going to have, I believe, 3 other emotions in there. And I don't know if they're going to have the guts to make, what would they call, Chris? I don't think they're going to have one called horny, but
I kept saying to myself, I was like, Chris, don't say horny. Don't say horny.
I think they're going to have one, but they're going to use another word for it. Like, what would the word be? Not sure.
I mean, we could borrow from another Disney film, Twitter-pated.
Twitter-pated?
Twitter-pated. That's what Thumper would be.
Oh my God.
In Bambi. I don't know. We could have a puppy love one. Maybe there's just a little dog that runs around being like, ah!
Yeah, or I just don't know what they call it. But I mean, young girl, young kid going into high school, hormones? I don't know what they'll call that emotion.
Could just be hormone.
Yeah, could be hormone. I could see that. Chris, for me, this is an incredibly special movie, this first one. That was also really intelligent. It was really smart. They played the heartstrings on the audience really well. And just the conceit of it was brilliant. Like this whole idea of telling a story from the perspective of these 5 key emotions inside a young girl's body and how they see things and perceive things. And I just thought it was so brilliantly done. And Pixar doesn't often, outside of their franchises, there's a lot of their films they haven't done sequels for. And with this one coming out 8 years ago, I mean, I honestly never thought they would do another one, but here we are. You had a chance to see the teaser for Inside Out 2. What did you think about it?
It looks precious, and I'm excited for an Inside Out 2. However, I'm a little concerned. When we saw that 13, like her blowing out her 13 birthday candles, right? I figured it was going to be about puberty and that sort of thing. I am nervous about this being a kind of sanitized version of what Big Mouth has already done. Now, that's a show that I did fall off of, but Big Mouth for a while was doing a really great job of talking about, those changing feelings, your changing body, how your brain isn't your ally sometimes during puberty, all kinds of stuff. And they did it really, really well, albeit in a very filthy way, which is one of the reasons why I like it. I don't question Pixar's ability to deliver something that is going to be very relatable, heartbreaking, heartwarming, etc. I'm just hoping that it's not kind of something I've already seen, but a less punchy version of it, if that makes sense.
Sure. I mean, to be fair, Inside Out came first.
Sure, it did. Of dealing with your emotions and everything. Yeah. But when it comes to, there is anxiety, there is the shame wizard, there's all those other characters that I really enjoyed on Big Mouth of exploring those less than fun emotions, feelings, and everything that you have that everyone deals with. And again, I think Pixar, and especially having Amy Poehler in this cast too, who signs on for projects that I think are really fantastic, I'm sure they'll be able to handle this very, very deftly. But my first instinct here was, oh, so Big Mouth, but for Disney. I'm sure they're going to win me over. I love the design of anxiety, and I love the use of Crazy Train in the trailer, and I love that little we wanted to make a better impression. Wait, we? I love that. I am just still kind of holding out on, okay, what is this one going to be about, and is it going to be something that still really grabs me?
By the way, a bunch of the viewers in the live chat have thrown out the name Desire. Yes.
Desire would be a good one.
Instead of horny, yes, I think Disney would much sooner embrace desire rather than horny. Either way,
don't be cowards, Disney. Say horny.
Just say horniness. I'm horniness, and then Yeah, make them out to look like Rayor or something. I would love it. I don't know why I honestly don't know why I said Ray's name there. I just pulled the name out of the air.
I was going to say the sweetest boy ever who doesn't trust people in trench coats.
Anyway, guys, either way, I mean, I don't think the trailer was fantastic. It was just a first little teaser, but it's gotten me really, really excited to see Inside Out 2. All right, guys, with that down, let's move on to this, shall we? You know, for the past nearly 4 months, and if you want to count the writer strike, the past 6 months, we've been in Hollywood hell, where the strikes have partially crippled the industry when it was just the writer strike, and then once the actor strike joined in, that completely crippled the industry. We were supposed to, damn it, Dune 2 is supposed to be in movie theaters right now. Dune 2 is supposed to be in movie theaters right now. It's supposed to come out November 3rd. I should be able to go to a movie theater today and go see Dune 2. Got pushed off.
Just watch Tremors on Max.
Just watch Tremors. It's all the same. Giant underground worms. But, and so here we are. A bunch of productions got delayed. Obviously, Deadpool 3 was a big one of those things. And it's been, I'm not going to lie to you, a frickin' clown show watching these two sides trying to get a deal done. But it's done. Last night, official word came that the strike is over. This comes to us from Variety, who writes the following. SAG-AFTRA negotiators have approved a tentative agreement that will end the longest actor strike against the film and TV studios in Hollywood history. The deal will see most minimums increase by 7%, which is a good increase, 2% above the increases received by the Writers Guild of America and the Directors Guild of America. The AMPTP, that's the studios, delivered its quote-unquote last, best, and final offer on Friday, which included increased bonuses for actors who appear on the most watched streaming shows. The offer did not include a key union priority, which was a share of revenue from each streaming platform. Okay, first of all, glory, glory, hallelujah. This thing is finally done. Of course, the writer strike got settled a while ago. There never was a director strike. And now the actor strike is finally put to bed and put to rest. There's already a mad dash. I heard from several sources yesterday, although this doesn't take a rocket science to figure this out. There is now a mad dash by all the studios to get productions up and running. They're fighting for production space. They're fighting for talent. They're fighting for crews. They're fighting for everything just to get everything back up and running again. Ryan Reynolds was very quick to get online and talk about some stuff as well, but we're going to talk about that in just a moment. And, it comes down to, Chris, I think you remember I said a while ago, I said there are a lot of little issues, but there's two main hurdles, one on each side. The residuals hurdle and the AI hurdle. One side's got to get over it and the other side's got to get over the other one. And I said, once they get past those two, I think we'll get a deal really quick. And sure enough, once they finally got over that last unimaginably idiotic AI thing that the studios were trying to push, we very quickly were able to finally get a deal, and it's done. And a lot of the stuff, the actors that the actors were hoping for, they did get. Remember, the best sign of a good negotiation is when everybody's a little unhappy. That's not that everybody's happy, that everybody's a little unhappy. But I think some really good gains were made by the actors. I think there's some really good security that got picked up by the studios. I think there are some losses and wins on both sides, and that's how a good deal should look like. And they came to a good deal, and I am very, very happy. But Chris, I can't be purely happy. It's not a John Campea day unless there's something I'm unhappy about. And while I am thrilled, and congratulations to the negotiating teams on both sides to getting this deal done, let's move everything forward. With that being said, I kind of mentioned this a little bit when the writer's strike ended, but I'm going to have to say it again now. And again, I'm happy. Strike's over. Yay. Deadpool going back into production. Yay. Happy about all. Okay. Totally am. But While everybody's popping bottles today, including us around on our show, obviously, while everybody in the industry is popping bottles today and all the negotiators on all the sides are patting themselves on the back, I am not going to forget that there was a lot of collateral damage done by this labor dispute. I'm not going to say done by the strike because that makes it sound like it's the actor's fault. This labor dispute. There was a lot of victims of this labor dispute. Collateral damage. People who ran, we read stories of people who ran like prop shops, restaurants, services, like all these people, businesses, small businesses, industries that rely on the Hollywood machine working and moving. And we have read so many stories about so many people who have lost their businesses, lost their apartments, lost like tons of money, who had nothing to do with this strike, who had nothing to do with the studios, had nothing to do with being in the Actors Union. It's just that because everything shut down, they got fucked up the ass. And listen, that's going to happen. That is going to happen. It's part of the nature of labor disputes. But there was no reason this thing should have taken nearly 4 months to bring to conclusion. When we sit back and look at the deal terms, there's going to be no excuse. No excuse. And I'm so tired of hearing from people who have never had a real negotiation in their life tell me, well, John, you just don't understand. That's how negotiations work. Fuck off. I worked in civil litigation, okay? Every day was about constant back and forth, about trying to get to a thing because everybody understood it's in everybody's best interest to get things settled as quickly as possible, right? This thing went on weeks longer than it needed to because the damn studios wouldn't get off that AI thing. Weeks longer than it needed to. I'm not saying this thing could have been done in 5 days, but I mean, weeks because of that AI thing. This negotiation got pushed back by nearly weeks because the SAG union put in that ridiculous thing about we want X number of monies for every subscriber you have. That was stupid and was never going to happen, and they knew that, and that delayed things. And back and forth, we could probably go over 50 issues on both sides that just delayed this thing unnecessarily. There is no reason that if you have rational adults in the room sitting down, that they couldn't have within a month been able to come to, okay, here's as far as we're willing to go. Here's as far as you're willing to go. Let's play with this a bit. What can we get to? Blah, 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 blah. Because look, the studios hurt, the actors hurt, yes, but I'm more mad for all those people who had nothing to do with this, that lost their businesses or lost their homes or lost whatever giant portion of their revenue for something that had nothing to do with them. So very happy for both sides. I'm glad the studios got some of the security that they wanted. I love that the actors got a lot of the gains that they needed. I'm thrilled things get to go back in, but this is absolute incompetence. This is nothing short of complete and utter incompetence that grown-ass adults sitting in a room could not have come to this deal sooner. And so I'm kind of ticked off about that. Chris, don't want to make it sound like I'm not happy that the strike's over. I'm totally happy that the strike's over. I just don't see any reason why this should not have been able to end, not immediately, but a lot sooner. Anyway, I am thrilled for all the friends that I have who are in SAG that can now start looking forward to going back out on auditions and getting back to work and all this kind of stuff. This has got to be a really good day, not just because you get back to work, but SAG had some significant gains as a result of the new contract. How are you feeling about it today?
You know, I'm feeling pretty good. I am with you on, I don't think this needed to be as long. Obviously, I have a slightly different perspective just because of the initial negotiations too of, oh, don't just keep bringing us the same deal. That's why we're giving you these counters that are, okay, well, give us this. If you're going to not move at all, then yeah, give me a share of your profits. Give me this, that, or the other. If you keep bringing me back the same thing, I'm going to try to just do whatever I want. But I'm really glad that we at least ratified that so-called zombie clause. And I do think that a lot of the press that this was getting is one of the reasons why this has been taken care of. I think once people actually heard how AI was going to be used, and that it was an existential threat, not just to actors, but to the industry as a whole and to other, tertiary companies. It was, oh, yeah, we can all get on board that this is not okay. So I'm really happy to see everything come together here. Now, right now, what we have, though, is we have to go through a couple different channels. So while work can resume for right now, what's going to happen next is that the negotiating committee is going to meet with our national board. They're going to go through all the ins and outs of everything. Once they approve of things, then it's going to come down to us union members. And we're going to be able to vote on ratifying that contract. And that's when the strike is officially over.
Right.
Now, that voting window is about 2 weeks. So there's going to be a kind of nebulous time where we're working, but things still could turn. However, it's pretty typical that once negotiations have been finalized and that our team is on board with stuff, the national board is on board. The union members typically vote yay on everything too. So this should all be good. I just want to be very clear for everyone too, as they see more news coming out about things being official, that there are just a couple other steps. I'm feeling really good. I'm feeling really optimistic. I'm really excited to go back to, continuing to be an unemployed or underworked actor. And, I got to say, too, to your point earlier about all the other industries that were affected, I'm so lucky because I do commercial voiceovers, because I do industrial voiceovers and the show that, I was able to keep going to restaurants and donating to the entertainment fund and doing things like that. Because a couple people who kind of didn't get it, a few edgelords would say fun things like, guess you got to get a real job now. Why don't you go to waiting tables? Restaurants in LA were closing. That was one of the first things to start losing jobs. Tech jobs. People who are members of IATSE, all these other ones, people were losing their jobs left and right.
And by the way, 90% of the wait staff in all Los Angeles restaurants are actors, by the way. It's just, It's just, for people who don't live in LA, that's part of the reality.
That's how this works. And so it's really great to see that we'll be able to get back on our feet, but there's still going to be a lot of healing just across the board here. And I'm really looking forward to workers getting back to work. I mean, we have somebody in the chat here who's an IATSE painter, and I'm hoping that they get, some jobs right away. Because I know somebody, again, who's on the executive side of things, who's coordinating, okay, we got to get people in London. We got to get these actors in Atlanta. We got to do this. So work is really revving up. So hopefully all of you incredible IATSE members, all of you incredible folks on the production side, the editing side, all of that, you will be getting to go back to work too soon. So I hope that you've been able to hang in as well, because we're pretty used to not working. You guys are used to working really, really hard constantly. So I hope that this helps you guys out.
Yeah. And of course, I mean, again, somebody brought up to me the other day that, John, this is just a 3-year deal. We could be facing this whole nightmare again in 3 years. It is very, 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 very uncommon for that to happen. Usually once a deal gets done, they are only 3-year deals, but they don't usually reach like the point where they have to start talking about a work stoppage until several cycles have gone by. That's why we haven't had an actor strike in so long. They'll go back to the table, Chris. I mean, they even said, like SAG already said, yeah, we didn't really get what we wanted here, but we're going to try to get more in 3 years. Like, probably not from a work stoppage, but they'll go back to the tables. They'll talk. They'll sign an extension. Both sides will give a little bit. They'll sign an extension. Yeah. And maybe in 6 or 9 years. We'll have more data
on streaming. Yeah.
Yes.
There'll be more stuff for us to kind of discuss then too.
And here's the scary part. The only thing that scares me about the 3 years from now, because everything else should just be standard, and we really shouldn't have to be facing the specter of another strike for at least another 6 or 9 years. But with the rate that AI is evolving, that's the one thing that makes me worried that in 3 years from now, both SAG, because that as AI develops, the studios are going to find some loopholes in whatever agreement there is now, or maybe some realities that simply don't exist right now. And they're going to start using some AI things that either, the union is going to have some legitimate issues with, or that the studio is going to say, hey, something that we restricted in the last deal, it's now just a regular part of life. We want to get this now. I mean, I could see AI becoming an issue in 3 years. As far as everything else, I think they'll work out little details and we won't have to worry about another strike for 6 to 9 years. I don't know. How are you feeling about that?
I mean, it keeps changing and evolving. There was just a really reductive thing in the chat about how AI doesn't whine, at least. Guys, I want to assure you, AI, it's not coming just for my job, okay? In these things, what we all were hoping with, robotics, with AI, with things like that, is they would take jobs that people did not want to have, not artistic endeavors and things like that. But it's going to come down to more, monotonous work. A lot of other things. Delivery services are starting to already be expedited by drones and things. AI is constantly evolving. The way we use it is constantly evolving. People don't hire copywriters anymore. People aren't hiring firms anymore because they're using algorithms and things like that. All other jobs can be affected by this. So maybe today I might be the one who sounds like they're whining, but tomorrow it's going to be you. They're going to come for your job too. So maybe we all just unite as workers and hope that we all can get treated as human beings. That is the reason why, though, we're going to have to keep discussing this, because we are going to have this technology increasing. And it's amazing tech. Don't get me wrong. I think there's a lot of great possibilities here too. But there is a real existential threat that needs to be addressed.
All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to this, shall we? Well, now that the actor strike is officially over, movies and TV shows can go back into production, and there's none that I'm looking forward to more than Deadpool 3. Now, of course, Deadpool had a May release date, and we were kind of hoping in the early days of the strike, because they were already well halfway into shooting the movie by the time the strike began. And so we remained optimistic that maybe Deadpool, if they could get the strike done quickly, might still be able to hold on to that May release date. Well, about a month ago, it became official. Marvel pulled Deadpool 3 off the release calendar for that May date, but it may be coming sooner than we thought. This comes to us from the folks over at The Hollywood Reporter, who writes this, talking about how everything is now ramping up to go back into production. There's rampant speculation on the threequel. Remember, this is coming from The Hollywood Reporter, which was about halfway done shooting when the SAG strike began, that it will swap release dates with fellow Marvel movie Captain America: Brave New World, which is largely done and set to fly into theaters on July 26th. That way, Deadpool 3 can still be released in the summer, a lucrative corridor for superhero movies. The filmmakers have also done editing and special effects work on Deadpool 3 while the strike was going on. So basically, what they're saying here is that you had Captain America 4 was scheduled to come out at the end of July, and Deadpool was scheduled to come out in the early part of May. Well, we know Deadpool got pulled off that May date. They're saying that, you know what, Captain America 4 is really close to being finished, and they can move that up to the Deadpool date and then move Deadpool back to July 26th, because even though the actor strike has been going on, they had half the film shot already, and editing and visual effects work wasn't being affected by the strike. So they've been working post-production on Deadpool, has been working around the clock. Now, to add to this, Ryan Reynolds just got on social media and talking about Dogpool and stuff like that. But he mentioned once the strike ended, he mentioned in his social media that the movie's going to come in the summer, which would fit exactly in. So Disney and Marvel already have that July date locked in for a major release, Captain America 4. You swap that into the May date if it is indeed ready to go. You give them that couple of months, 2.5 extra months to get Deadpool ready. And if they've been able to continue to work on a lot of the post-production stuff, I don't see any reason why maybe they couldn't get this done. And it seems like that's what they're saying. That seems like what Ryan Reynolds is talking about, that they want to get that. So Chris, we're looking at two significant things here. Number one, we could be looking at getting Captain America 4 a lot earlier than we thought we were going to get it, if it does indeed take over that old Deadpool release date in May, which Deadpool won't be able to make. And then Deadpool, which I was starting to fear, you remember we talked about this, I was starting to worry that we may not be getting Deadpool till like Christmas of 2024, or hell, even maybe early 2025. But it sounds like maybe late July, because Reynolds is saying summer. The Hollywood Reporter article saying they're talking about it taking over the Captain America spot. This is clearly not official. Let's be clear. It's not official, but that seems to be what they're aiming towards. And as long as the order of this doesn't affect, as long as something doesn't happen in Deadpool 3 that you need to have seen before you see Captain America 4, which I highly doubt is the case, this is something that sounds very exciting to me. And the idea, okay, maybe we don't get Deadpool 3 in May, but if we can still get it in that summer, I'll be thrilled. Anyway, what do you think about what's being proposed here? Do you think this is what's going to happen? What are the pros? What are the cons? How do you see it?
I think it's really smart, especially with Marvel not having the steadiest track record these days when it comes to the box office.
That's an understatement.
And of course, everything's subjective, but when you look at numbers, those don't lie. And people have not been running to the box, going to see Marvel movies like they used to. We had those projections for the Marvels too, operating lower than Black Adam and The Flash. People aren't as excited about these movies, even though this year we got Guardians 3, which was fabulous, right? We're still just kind of not sure about what they're doing with this version of this phase. And especially something like Brave New World, where again, it's people coming in as new Cap or other characters coming in. Sure, you've got the star power of Harrison Ford, but you don't have the track record of Deadpool. You don't have the wacky, zany antics of Deadpool or the ridiculousness of having Hugh and Ryan in a movie together again. Plus, timeline-wise, if there is something that kind of is a whoopsie doodle, I feel like that's something that they're going to address in movie. Of, oh, no, we can't do that yet. We came out first, remember? Okay, no, just disregard that, ignore it. I think you get to do a lot of those fun jokes of talking about this strike, talking about this order, talking about the changes to Marvel as a whole as well. Because in theory, if this is Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe, the cinematic universe in this case, you can also start implementing what Feige and the folks at Marvel are doing with Marvel properties moving forward. Talking about the streamlining of things, making things less connected, etc. And you can really use that movie as a fun meta way to talk about how you're trying to make this work for your consumer without being, I don't know, a kind of fan bootlicker. Just trying to, hey, yeah, we've made some missteps. We've tried a couple of things. I'm Deadpool. Who gives a shit? Let's go. So I think this is a really, really fun move too, because it's just going to set you up for having a even better experience when you go see Brave New World. And it allows you to make some changes to that film as well, given this new direction with Marvel.
Yeah, I see a lot of, now the only concern that I think a lot of the viewers, because I've seen some of the viewers mention this in the live chat, and the one that I would have too is making sure Deadpool has enough time to get finished. Now, remember, this isn't them rushing the movie. I mean, the script's written. They shot half the film already. It's not like they're rushing the development of the film. They've got all the development done. Like, everything's ready to go. But they lost 3 3/4 months of production time. They're gaining back by moving to from early May to late July. They're gaining back a little over 2.5 months. So that's still like a 1.25 month deficit. But if they had already had half the movie shot and they continue to do a lot of post-production while the strike was going on, I think they'll be able to do it. I don't even think it's going to be a case where, well, you're going to see some visual effects that don't quite look right. Like, I think that gives them enough time. Because what are we, November? So like December, January, February, March, April, May, June, July. I mean, that's still 8 months away.
It is still quite a while. It is something that I think we all should be cognizant of, just because of all of the things that have come out about VFX artists being really pushed, burning out, just people running through them because of the workload, working those 18+ hour days. But with all the talk of unionization, I think that Disney, this go, is probably going to be much more aware of how they're working these folks, or at least, the very least, the optics of it, especially coming out of this 114-day strike for the actors, 148-day strike for the writers.
All right, guys. Well, with that down, we're going to move over now and start taking your live questions that you guys have been sending in using the super chats. By the way, the super chats are still open, but they're only going to be open for another minute or so. So if you still have a thought, theory, opinion, question, or topic you'd like to bring up, go ahead and fire that in now quickly. But we're going to take this opportunity to say goodbye to Chris. Chris, thanks so much for being here again today. Where can people find you online?
I mean, today online, my stories are going to be me doing this. You can find me at It's Chris Carr. You can also find my voiceover, speakfriendstudio.com. That's also on Instagram, speakfriendstudio. And I'll talk to you about voiceover. My husband will talk to you about tricking people into thinking you're from the UK or somewhere else. It's a fun time. And you'll always see me on the show, too. Thanks, guys.
All right, thanks a lot. Good having you here today, Chris. And guys, we're going to get to your questions here, but before we do, we're going to take a minute and thank the main sponsor of the John Campea Show YouTube channel, my mobile service provider, speaking of Ryan Reynolds, and they should be yours, Mint Mobile. Guys, we want to take a second to thank a sponsor of today's video, Mint Mobile. Signing your life away to a big wireless provider is kind of like being trapped on a roller coaster from hell. Sure, it looks like fun at first. They probably even threw in a free phone, but now you can't get off. Month after month of insane bills and unexpected thrills, like overages and surprise fees. If that sounds like your current big wireless plan, it's time to get off the ride with Mint Mobile. For a limited time, wireless plans from Mint Mobile are just $15 a month. That's unlimited talk, text, and data for just $15 a month. You guys know before I came to Mint Mobile, I was paying triple what I am paying now on the standard big wireless plan, and I will never go back. All plans come with unlimited talk, text, and high-speed data delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. Use your own phone with any Mint Mobile plan and bring your phone number along with all your existing contacts. To get your new unlimited wireless plan for just $15 a month and get the plan shipped right to your door for free, go to mintmobile.com/Campea. That's mintmobile.com/Campea. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/Campea. And thank you to our friends at Mint Mobile for sponsoring this episode of the John Campea Show podcast. Okay, guys, with that all down, let's get over and start taking your questions here, shall we? We are going to go over to, that's the wrong one. Let's try this one. Yes, that's the right one. All right, we're going to start things off here with, you know what? I'm going to take these headphones off now that I don't have Chris on the other line. Much more comfortable. All right, where we start? We start with Christopher Brickner, who writes, "The Marvels is now fresh on Rotten Tomatoes. As a matter of fact, it is." Look, interesting thing. Yesterday, it started off about 51, got up to 54%, then got up to 55%. And this morning I woke up and took a look, and it is now at 62%. Now look, that's good. That's good. Going from 55 to 62, that's good. Right? I'm not saying it's not good. That is good. Here's the problem, though. We're all sitting here celebrating that this Marvel movie, this MCU movie, got up to 62%, and we're all popping bottles for it getting to 62%. Guys, it wasn't that long ago, and I'm not trying to be negative. Believe me, I'm not, you know me, I'm an MCU fan. I'm not trying to be negative, but it wasn't that long ago that we were getting 85s, 92s, 97s. You know, I said this yesterday, but a Marvel movie would come out and get like 73, and we'd be going, what's wrong? What went wrong with a 73? And now here we are today. This is the state we're in. It's gotten up to 62, and we're all celebrating. Like, hey, look, and don't get me wrong, 62, that means a solid majority of critics like it. That's good. 62 is, you know, it's fresh. Okay, that's good. That's good. But I'm not going to lose focus of the fact that 3 years ago, we would never look at a 62 on an MCU film and go, well, that's good. And we never would have done it. 3 years ago, we'd all be asking, what the hell is wrong? Because again, I said this yesterday, I'll say it again today. We used to go into a Marvel film expecting it to be great. And today we go in hoping that it'll be just good. And that's the difference. So, hey, going up to 62, absolutely, that's a positive thing. I'm not saying it's not. But did we forget that we're used to these movies coming out to be 85s, 90, 95s? It's still not a great thing for a Marvel film. For Marvel, that's all I'm saying. Anyway, okay. Next up, we go to James Germain, who writes, "Hey, John, surprised Austin Butler wasn't one of your choices for Link, considering his Shannara Chronicles background. Keep it filthy." Just because he was in another fantasy show does not mean he's the right guy to be in another fantasy movie just because he's acted in another genre. Now, that being said, James, Austin Butler is a fabulous actor, Oscar nominated. And if they were to announce tomorrow that Austin Butler was going to be Link, I would be very happy with that. I 100% would be very happy for it. But I'm not just going to pick any random actor just because they happen to be in another fantasy thing. You know what I'm saying? But hey, he would be a good pick. No doubt about it. I'm with you there on that. All right. Christopher Brickner writes, you said Marvel needs to course correct. To be fair, they started to correct a while ago. They did? Where? But their 2023 projects were too far along to change much. Well, we don't know, right? You don't know if they're course correcting until we see it on screen. Like, I believe they need to steer away from the multiverse saga stuff. To be honest, it hasn't worked. But I say that the multiverse stuff hasn't worked. But if each individual movie had been good, then whether it was multiverse saga or not wouldn't have made a difference, right? Like, we're all only complaining, including me. The complaints I have would probably disappear if all the movies were still exactly about what they were about, but they were all really good movies. Like if Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania was a great movie. If what's a recent Marvel Cinematic Universe movie? If Thor: Love and Thunder was a great movie, and maybe some of you do think they were great movies, and that's awesome if you do. I'm just saying, if all the Marvel films that had been coming out had been universally loved as great movies like the way they used to, then we wouldn't have anything to complain about whether it's about multiverse saga or course corrections, anything like that. The problem is just that they haven't made the movies to be great, in my opinion, at any rate. All right, thanks for bringing that up, Christopher. Okay, next up. Sam Fisher writes, one of Nintendo's big things with Link is that he's pretty androgynous. He kind of is. So I would expect an androgynous looking actor, maybe even a non-binary actor for Link. I doubt that. Even the creator of the Legend of Zelda series, I believe said once in an interview that he always kind of envisioned Link as kind of an androgynous character. So yeah, there's something to be said there for that. That being said, Link is pretty understood to be a male character by most people, right? Even though the creator said that they always kind of envisioned Link as being androgynous, that's fine, but he's kind of accepted to be looked at as a male character. So that's why I think Nintendo will probably stick with that. Now, whether they go with a kid-looking actor, a slightly older-looking actor, I don't even care about that. So I got into a little debate with somebody because I mentioned Justice Smith yesterday. Right? I mentioned Justice Smith on as one of the guys that I think who would be maybe a good pick to play him. And I got into this debate with somebody. The guy came in at me and said, no, Link is white. Link is white. He's a white guy. Keep him as a white guy. No need to race change. And I was like, you do know that Link isn't white. He's an elf. Just by casting a human actor, you're already race changing because his race is elf. And just by putting in a human actor, you are race changing right there. Immediately, right out of the gate, you're race changing. And actually, you know what? Harv's Cage has brought up a really good point in the live chat saying, well, I thought Link was Japanese. And you know what? I think Harv's Cage has kind of nailed it. Really, if Link should be portrayed as anything, if you want to stay as true to the original conceit and people who made it, he should probably be Japanese. But here's the thing. Link is not Caucasian. Link's an elf. He's an elf. Period. He's an elf. He's not human. So just by making it a human character, by having him played by a human actor, you're already race changing him. Just throwing that out there. I don't care if the pigmentation of his skin is a little bit different than the pigmentation of his skin in whatever. Like, this is the part I never get. Okay, Link is supposed to be 5'5". All right. So if they get an actor who's 5'4", are you going to be upset? Because that's a big physical difference, an inch height difference. That's a physical difference. Why are you worried about the tone of the pigmentation of their skin as the only physical trait you're worried about? Everything else is fine. They can be 6'9", they can have 5 eyebrows, doesn't matter, but as long as he's white, I'll never understand that. And by the way, not important to the nature of the character. If the character is Japanese, if the character is portrayed by a Caucasian actor, a black actor, an East Indian actor, it doesn't matter. None of that is important to the character of Link. None of that is important to the character of Link. I mean, you can make Link have purple skin. It's not important to the character. So people hide other agendas behind this, but anyway, that's just my kind of take on it. Whatever. All right. Next up, HV3 writes, as the last remaining MCU fan, you are not the last remaining MCU fan. Listen, I'm a big MCU fan, but I call it like I see it. Like when they struggle, I'm going to point out that they're struggling. When they're doing things that aren't working, I'm going to point out that things they're doing aren't working. I'm still a fan. Listen, you're talking to a Toronto Maple Leafs fan, okay? You're talking to a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. Toronto Maple Leafs fans are the most loyal fans in all sports, but we will be the first ones to point out what the Maple Leafs do wrong. Doesn't mean we're any less of a fan, right? So you're not the last fan, HV3. Anyway, HV3 writes, as the last remaining MCU fan, I can honestly say that I am excited for the Marvels. I have loved the marketing. I can't wait to see it on Saturday. I'm glad you are. And you know what? I'm going off myself to go see it today. I'm going off to see it today. And, Thomas Bombadil, there are dozens of us, dozens. I like that. And listen, I'm very intrigued. By the way, I've heard that something very significant happens in the movie. I don't know what it is. I'm going to find out later today. I personally don't think that the ad campaign and the trailers have been all that good, but I've seen a lot of movies that I love that had trailers that I didn't think were very good. So, you know what? I like the first Captain Marvel movie. Hopefully I'm going to go in and be entertained. Fingers crossed, man. Fingers crossed. But believe me, HV3, you are not the last one. All right. Next up, HV3 also writes, for my personal taste, the MCU movies have not dipped in quality at all. I admit their streaming shows are pretty bad, except for a couple. And you know, that's the thing, HV3. It's art, right? So it hits us all in different ways. I totally believe there are some people who watch all the MCU films and don't like any of them. And there's nothing wrong with that. Or you have watched all the more recent MCU films and you think they're all great. Nothing wrong with that. It's art, and art hits us all in different ways. And if that's how you feel about it, nothing wrong with that. I mean, some of us may not agree and some of us may feel differently, but that doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means that's how the art hits you. So I'm glad you're enjoying it. All right. Next up, Dildar the Glorious writes, I'm going to go see Marvels after work. Me too. I'm excited but concerned because Real Reject says it's one of the worst MCU movies, but I still got to see it to judge. See, here's the thing. Like, me and Greg, who's one half of the Real Rejects, it's Greg and John over there. Me and Greg agree on a lot of movies, but there's also some movies he doesn't like that I think he's crazy. And I'm sure there's some movies that I don't like that he thinks I'm crazy for not liking them. You're never going to have your taste completely aligned with one person, nor should you. There are a lot of movies Greg and I both love and both hate. And then there's some movies Greg and I have talked about that I really liked and he hated, and vice versa. So look, whenever you see a 62%, that's concerning, right? I mean, that's not terrible. 62 is not terrible. That's all right. You know what? That's the perfect word for it. 62 is all right. That means if there were 100 critics giving reviews, 62 of them liked it, 38 of them didn't. And Greg happens to be one of the 38 that didn't. Okay. That doesn't mean I'm not going to like it. And if it was a 95, it doesn't mean I would like it. But there are a lot of different critics with a lot of different opinions. Don't anchor your fears or hopes to the opinion of one critic. Not me, not Greg, not Jeremy, not Chris, not anybody. Never anchor all of your hopes or all of your fears to the opinion of one critic. Hear what they have to say, weigh it out, see how your experience differs. But again, never weigh or anchor your hopes or fears to just one critic. That would be my advice. All right. Al writes, what's your most disappointing movie of 2023? I can't even remember which movies came out in 2023. I know there have been many movies I've seen this year that I didn't like, but I just can't remember off the top of my head what came out this year. So I can't say for sure. All right. Next up, we've got Vixter 5001 writes, random Loki trivia. The bookshop where Obi tried to buy his book in the last episode was filmed at my local bookshop in London. Very cool. I wish I'd known that when it was filming. It's always fun when you find out that a movie you like was filmed or is going to film somewhere near you. I don't know why, but for some reason, a lot of filming the last couple of years has happened in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. I mean, I even remember like a lot of stuff has been filming in Hamilton. I got to be in that one Hulk movie because a bunch of it shot in Hamilton. And I remember when I started watching the CW show Titans, the very first scene of Titans opens up and I'm like, that looks like a Hamilton bus. And that looks like a Hamilton street. And immediately I got online and I looked at, oh yeah, Titans filmed a whole bunch of it. A ton of Titans was filmed in my hometown of Hamilton. It's always fun when you find out something shot in your neck of the woods. I always like that. All right. Next up, we got Devin Pangrakar, who writes, woohoo, strike is over. Now James Gunn can finally cast me as Condiment King and Brave and the Bold. You know what? Here's the funny thing, Devin. I know you're joking. And if it was anybody else running the DC universe now, I would say no one is ever going to put Condiment King or Kite Man or whatever on the big screen in a movie. Unless that person is James Gunn. The guy who gave us Polka Dot Man and made him an amazing character, that guy I could maybe see bringing Condiment King and even Kite Man. Hell yeah. To the big screen. I can see it happening. All right. And if anybody's going to make those characters good, it's James Gunn. All right. Nat Reeds writes, is it fair to use Thor Ragnarok and Love and Thunder as opposing examples of Marvel Studios interference? Namely, the latter has less tonal restraint. It's definitely hard to say. I don't think, look, when it comes to interference, I have said this for years. Back when Marvel was still firing on all cylinders, I said, guys, you know the studio that does the most interference? It's Marvel. Kevin Feige. I mean, several directors have come out and said, these are Kevin Feige movies. They're not the director's movies. They're Kevin Feige's movies. Kevin Feige is the one who sets the tone. Kevin Feige is the one who sets what the parameters are. And then the directors are free to, within the parameters that Kevin Feige sets up, they're free to go in there and mess around and bring their own creativity to a degree. Yeah, that's all true. But at the end of the day, they all got to follow Kevin Feige's direction. No studio has more interference than Marvel. Sometimes maybe they needed to exert more. But what I'm thinking is, Thor Ragnarok and Thor Love and Thunder probably had the same amount of interference. It's just that within those parameters, Taika went really far to one side. And maybe Kevin Feige should have looked at the dailies. But again, he's far too busy now to be involved as much as he used to be with every single movie. Maybe if he had been in there every day in the dailies viewing rooms, he would have seen, you know what, Taika, we're going a little bit too far into the silly humor. Like, there's sober silliness like Ragnarok, and then there's like drunk silliness, which is kind of what Thor Love and Thunder went to. So that could be one way of looking at it. All right. Armani Jones writes, it's several months old at this point, but did you watch Mel Ween's film Genie du Barry? No. Did you like it? Also my first super chat here. Well, thank you, Armani, for saying that. By the way, I'm assuming this isn't the Armani Jones, a guy who I watch on ESPN. I'm going to assume it's not. At any rate, no, I'll be honest with you. I've never even heard of it. So unfortunately, I can't comment on it. But thank you for throwing in a chat there, man. It's good to have you here. Thanks for doing that. All right. Next up, D Wild writes, tinfoil hat theory. Echo dropping all at once mimics Netflix Daredevil binge culture, which is the vibe they are going for, and the familiarity only helps. No, 100% no. Them dropping it all at once is not going to make it feel like Daredevil. The Crown drops all at once. So they're not going to make it feel like they're, and also releasing it week to week isn't going to make it feel like WandaVision either. The show is what will make it feel like Daredevil or not. Listen, I have zero doubt about this. They're dropping Echo all at once because they don't really believe in the show. Now we'll find out. We'll find out. When is it dropping again? Is it January? Help me out, guys. When does it drop? In January? I think it's January. Guys in live chat, help me out here. I believe it's January. But Carlos is saying, yeah, it's January. Okay. So I believe completely, because of the success they've had by putting them out week by week, let word of mouth and buzz build and understand, they don't believe that there is going to be word of mouth about this show. And I hope I'm wrong. Like, I hope we start watching in January and I'm going to come back and go, guys, this show's amazing. You know, I love it when I love it. There's nothing I love more when there's a show or movie that I think looks stupid and then I watch it and go, holy crap, that was really good. I love it when that happens. So hopefully that'll be the case with that. By the way, going to throw this out here. Side, a bunch of you guys have been telling me to watch Blue Eye Samurai on Netflix. So yesterday, Ann had a birthday dinner. So just me and the dogs at home last night. I had a few hours. So I decided to pop on Netflix. For those of you who haven't heard, it's a new animated show, Blue Eye Samurai. Holy shit, it's really good. Wow. I mean, some people were saying it's almost as good as Arcane. It is not as good as Arcane, but holy shit, it's really good. I was taken with it immediately. And I love how every episode gives more and more backstory and adds more depth and layer to all the characters. It's super violent, lots of filthy, like lots and lots and lots of filthy. A lot of animated sex and stuff like that. Peaches. That's right. You know that Ghost Rider has seen it. Peaches. Only somebody who's seen the show will know what that means. But yeah, thank you to everybody who recommended Blue Eye Samurai on Netflix, because I have 2 episodes left to go, but I've really enjoyed it so far. Okay. Next up, we've got Devin, who writes, still not over the 180 that Echo trailer caused. Hey, listen, I still kind of believe they're dropping all at once because they don't believe in it, but I'm 100% in agreement with you. I had zero interest in the Echo show until that trailer dropped. And all of a sudden now I'm like, now I really want to watch it. Like, I still don't have a lot of belief that it's going to be great, but that trailer completely made me interested in seeing it. And I wasn't interested in it before, and now I am. All right. Next up, Yamed writes, hey, John, love the show. Thank you so much. Thank you for being part of my day. My question is, do you think Cap 4 will be a good movie or even succeed at the box office? I believe it can be a good movie. I like the director. I like the writers. I've got a decent amount of faith that they can make it a good movie. Can it be successful? I don't know. They've got 2 things working against them. Number one, it's not the MCU's Captain America. It's not Steve Rogers. And you can try to drag me into the argument all you want. No, Sam is every bit as Captain America, Steve. No, he's not. No, he's not. Bucky wouldn't be, Sam wouldn't be. Captain America, Steve Rogers. But anyway, to most of the MCU audience, Steve, this isn't the Captain America they know. It's a new MCU Captain America. So not that will prevent it from being good. I kind of believe it will be good. The second hurdle that they face, though, is that Captain America, this version of Captain America, is a TV show. And there's always a struggle taking a television thing and trying to put it on the big screen. There have been a couple of examples of it working out, but there's also been many where it's a little bit more challenging. So I have more belief that it'll be good than I do that it'll be like financially a hit. Maybe yes, maybe no. Well, we'll find out. But I think it'll be good. All right. James Dezeal writes, what's the difference between Netflix / Snyderverse and Netflix doing their Marvel show while Disney owned those rights? Good question, James, but there's a couple of very, very important distinctions. Number one, when Netflix had the rights to do a couple of shows, they specifically had to do them with characters that Marvel was not using. right? What you did not have was a Winter Soldier running around in the Netflix universe while another Winter Soldier was running around in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, right? You didn't have Spider-Man in the Netflix universe and in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They were able to a degree use some characters that Marvel just wasn't using at that point. That's not what the Snyderverse fans are asking for. You think for 1 second that James Gunn isn't going to be using Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, and that's what they are. So for Netflix, the theoretical impossibility that Netflix gets the rights to continue on doing a Snyderverse thing never happened. Because unless that Snyderverse thing is going to use all D-level DC characters that DC isn't going to use, but the Snyderverse fans want Superman, they want Batman, they want Flash, they want Aquaman, right? They're using all these characters that Warner Brothers is going to be using. With the Netflix Marvel thing, that was a totally different situation. So yeah, that's why that just doesn't work. All right, next up. We go to Thomas Bombadil, who writes, "Hey team, did you see the trailer for Masters of Air?" Speaking of Austin Butler, I did, as a matter of fact. It looks phenomenal. A Spielberg and Hanks produced World War II miniseries on Apple TV Plus. Sign me up. Yeah, I'm not going to say I thought it looked phenomenal, but I do think it looked pretty darn good. I'm interested in it. And, of course, they do a big thing of saying from the producers of Band of Brothers. That's going to get a lot of people's attention right away. So, yeah, I thought it looked really good, Thomas. I'm looking forward to seeing it. All right, next up, Victor writes, "A great start to fellow travelers with Matt Bomer and Jonathan Bailey, Showtime / Paramount. Never heard of it. Two men who meet during the height of McCarthyism in 1950s. Okay, the premise sounds good. I've never heard of Fellow Travelers. I've never heard of I like Matt Bomer. I've never heard of this, but something set against McCarthyism in the 1950s? That's got me. Where is it? Showtime, Paramount Plus. Okay, I'm going to take a peek at that, Victor. Thanks for putting that on my radar. Dildar the Glorious writes, "I find it funny how upset certain people are upset over John's casting for Link, saying he wants the movie to be woke and being huge jerks about it. Listen, anybody who uses the word woke in any sentence, I just assume they're morons and I don't listen to them. I just tune them out and don't listen to them. So it doesn't really matter." HV3 writes, "The so-called worst MCU movies, Quantumania and Love and Thunder, are flipping fantastic. So yes, the MCU movies is still going strong." Again, HV3, I don't agree with your assessment, but that doesn't mean that that's not true for you. The art hits us all in different ways. And if you loved those movies, that's awesome. I'm not going to try to talk you out of loving those movies. You love what you love. And I'm glad. I want everybody to love every movie that they see. And if you love those ones, then I'm jealous that you got to love them and I didn't. So we'll just say that. All right. Zach Taylor writes, "Happy 50th anniversary to Disney's Robin Hood." Oh, is it the 50th anniversary of that animated movie? Watched it last night and it still brings a smile to my face. The best Robin Hood ever. I don't think it's the best Robin Hood ever, but man, I grew up watching that. Robin Hood and Little John running through the forest. Come on. Not in Nottingham. It's a wonderful movie. I adore that Robin Hood animated movie so much. I don't think it's the best Robin Hood thing ever, but it's really special to me. I love it. All right. Next up. Shamrock Vibes writes, "I love going to art galleries. Who is your favorite artist? I have always thought a movie / TV show about Dada movement would be interesting." Oh, listen, man, I'm not going to pretend to be remotely cultured enough. I could sit here and say Van Gogh or something like that, but I'm not going to lie. When I think of my favorite artists, I think of comic book artists. I don't think of classical painters. Not that you shouldn't. I'm just saying I'm not that cultured. Yeah, I go to the big LA art gallery with Anne every once in a while, because Anne's more into art than I am. But I'm not going to pretend that I have a favorite artist, and anyone that I would mention is really just a comic book artist. Okay, next up. Thanks for that, Shamrock. Thanks for trying to class the place up a little bit, Shamrock. I appreciate that. All right, TJ Perry writes, VR enthusiast here. Vision Pro is not meant for entertainment. Well, tell that to Apple. Vision OS is a virtual computer operating system controlled 100% by your eyes and hands. Oh yeah. Well, we talked about that, right? There are a lot of people who are going to be trying to make it a Minority Report, like blah, blah, blah. They advertise a lot about that, but make no mistake about it, TJ. Apple is also heavily marketing this as an entertainment device. Because if you look at market penetration, you're going to sell 85% of these things to people who are buying them for entertainment purposes versus 15% of people who are going to be buying these for some form of productivity services. And I feel 100% certain about that. Apple knows that the most people who are buying these for, the majority of people who are going to be buying these things, they're going to be buying them more for the entertainment purposes, for the games, for the way to watch movies, for the way they get to go through their social media, whatever. And probably only about 15% of them are buying them for productivity purposes. I feel very, very sure about that. And by the way, that is why Apple is advertising it very much as also an entertainment device. So yeah, that's why they featured Avatar on their promotion for it so much. Anyway, by the way, the one thing I would be interested in using the Vision Pro for, TJ, is for those purposes. Like I would be really interested in getting in there and doing like word processing and database spreads and stuff like that. I'd be very interested in trying it out for that more than I would be for watching movies on it. But you and I think, are in the minority. The more people, the majority of people are going to be buying this thing are buying it for entertainment. All right. Todd Kaepernick writes, do you have a better appreciation for Riverdale now that Gen V confirmed that cast was comprised of God U alum? Suddenly everything makes sense now. I have no idea what we're talking about. What cast was comprised of God U alum? Unfortunately, Todd, I have no idea what we're talking about here. I have no idea what we're discussing. Sorry about that. All right. Patrick Hamilton writes, thank God the strike is finally over. Hollywood needs to make Deadpool 3 a priority over anything else. Nothing else matters. Well, listen, if the Hollywood Reporter story is to be believed and if Ryan Reynolds is to be believed, it sounds like they're aiming to get that thing to us by the summer. So fingers crossed, man. All right. Dat Passion Guy sends in a $20 super chat. Thank you, Dad, for supporting our channel on that level, man. And he writes, I remember he was writing this in the live chat earlier too. Hey, John, I'm an IATSE painter out of Atlanta. I have lost 85% of my salary this year. I'm trying to save my apartment. Lease is up 2 weeks before Christmas. This year has ruined us. Listen, I'll tell you what, you're exactly the type of person that I was complaining. I wasn't complaining about you. I was complaining about how people like you have been affected. Because I have some very, very close friends of mine that are also IATSE members, and they've been devastated. They have been devastated. While the AMPTP and SAG have been playing, let's swing our dick. Like they've been playing measure your dick competitions against each other and airing out their dirty laundry to press and making big, grand public statements. And instead of being in a room and just trying to get a deal done and throwing out ridiculous, nonsensical demands like what they wanted from streaming services or what they wanted for AI. Like instead of all that, meanwhile, while they're having their dick swinging competitions, people like you, friends of mine, friends of yours, who have nothing to do with this strike have been sitting there going, that's great. I'm losing my car. That's great that you guys are fighting out who's going to get the extra 3%. I'm going to lose my apartment in 3 months. I've lost out 50% of my salary this year. I can't pay my bills. While these other people have been sitting there swinging for the dicks. Now, look, again, I don't think you can just walk into a negotiating room. Again, and I worked in law. I was a part of a lot of high-profile negotiations, high-profile, high-stakes negotiations, right? You can't just get it done in a day. Maybe you can. But it is the main reason this thing took nearly 4 months is because of one word, incompetence. All right? The negotiators for the AMPTP and Fran Drescher and her crew were incompetent. The negotiators were incompetent. Clearly, there was a deal there to be made. Grown-up people should have been able to get in that room and had that hammered out in 8 weeks. I mean, again, I'm not saying that the the thing should have been wrapped up right away. I'm not saying that you can't expect some collateral damage. Of course you do, 100%. I'm not saying otherwise. But as we look at this deal, you're telling me it took you 4 months to get to this thing that probably a couple of college kids, you could have just gone to a random college. Hey, you 2 college kids, you come represent us. Here's what we want. Now you 2 college kids, you come and you represent us. Here's what we want. I'm telling you right now, you put 4 college kids in a room, they probably could have come to this deal in, anywhere between 4 to 8 weeks. They probably could have this done. This strike should have been half the length that it was, but they don't care. As long as the studios are happy, as long as the actors are happy, who cares about all these other people that lost their businesses, lost their apartments, lost their cars, lost their income? It's just 4 fucking months. 4 fucking months. And ain't none of you can come at me and say, John, you don't understand negotiations. Yeah, I've fucking sat in briefing rooms with opposing attorneys and big money stuff on the table and been a part of those things. I've been a part of it. Nothing as high or as important as the actor strike, granted. But yeah, I do know how this works. I'm not the world's foremost expert, but I know better than a lot of people how this works. And I know that if these people had half a brain, they should have been able to get this done in half the time. But that's just me. Okay, next up. Where are we at? We are at, and thank you, Dat Passion, for sending that in. And I really hope now you're able to get back to work really fast, man. I really hope so. Okay, Charles Andre Becara writes, good old rivalry from Montreal, Quebec, Canada, home of the true greatest hockey team, God's green earth. No. The Habs, go Leafs. Go Habs, go. Leafs suck. Loser since 1967. Yes, they have been. Still love you, John. Please don't kill me. What have I done? It's one of the things that made my household a very difficult place to be. Because my brother, Robert Campea, my brother, is a die-hard Habs fan, a die-hard Montreal Canadiens fan. And whether you're Yankees, Red Sox, there is no rivalry in all of sports with the history and the passion of Leafs Canadiens. The Leafs and the Habs, you'll never know. You'll never know unless you grew up in Toronto or Quebec. You'll just never know. All right. Thanks for that, Charles. Next up, we got Luis Enrique de la Peña, who writes, what could be a middle point in the debate after 3 years? Royalties for the use of actors' likeness? No. I mean, royalties are a thing of the past. We live in a new era. The way royalties, what they are and how they were structured, was based off an old 1960s television model. It just doesn't work anymore. Now they have these bonus systems. There should not be royalties for the use of actors' likenesses. Actors should always be required to give their permission before a studio uses their likeness, or if they've passed away, their estate should be required to give their permission. And then there should be individual payment, not royalties, based on that. But I always think permission has to be a part of it. If someone's going to use your likeness, you have to give your permission. Somebody shouldn't just be able to do it. You have to give permission, I believe. All right. Al writes, remember in Space Jam 2, I'm trying not to, Don Cheadle wanted to take LeBron James's likeness for future movies. Was Space Jam trying to warn us about AI in movies? I totally have forgotten about that. And actually, that's a really good point. You know what? Maybe Space Jam 2 was actually a brilliant, ahead of its time movie. No, it was just terrible. It was just bad. All right. Victor Rodriguez, final question of the day, guys. I know today's show's gone really long. Victor Rodriguez writes, hopefully with the strike over, Beyond the Spider-Verse can continue production and voiceover work soon. Hope you are doing well. Well, here's the interesting thing, Victor. The actor strike has not held up Beyond the Spider-Verse. The actors literally go in for a couple of days and record their voices. Work can progress on that movie. They can get caught up on that. It's not like a live action movie where actors are required to be on set for like 2 months or 2.5 months or 3 months. You know, they literally go into a sound booth for a couple of days and they record the lines that they needed to record. It's, I'm not saying it's not important. I'm just saying that's not what's going to hold up a movie. You know, unless the actor strike happened right before they were finished the movie and the last thing they needed to do is to get the voice actors in. They've just been waiting for that part. But otherwise, everything else on the movie can still progress and they can still do everything they need to do. All right, guys, with that down, thank you so much, everybody, for joining me here for today's installment of the John Campea Show podcast. Big special thank you to all you guys who sent in those questions. Number one, because you gave us interesting things to talk about. But number two, you supported our channel as you did it. And all of us involved with the show. Thank you guys so very much for your support. Also, a big thank you to Chris Carr for being here today. She'll, of course, be coming back and joining me again tomorrow. And hopefully you guys will be coming back and join us again tomorrow as well. By the way, I really don't mention it often. I know every YouTuber does, and I hardly ever do, but I'll do it this one time. Hey, if you want to help out the channel, click the thumbs up button. Just give the video a like, leave a comment, subscribe to our channel, blah, 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 all that other stuff. And don't forget, guys, we also have a podcast, the John Campea Show podcast, where this show and our open mic shows are put up in audio only format for those times that you're driving, commuting, at work, at the gym, whatever. Make sure you can go and subscribe to it on your favorite podcasting app, just so it's there the next time that you need it. All right, guys, that'll do it for me. Thanks so much for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.